Sister.
Hey girl, hey. Let me guess, you got a word.
Sure do.
I'll meet you at Bayroom.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Bayroom, episode 9.
Yes,
9 episodes in. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Deja,
I'm Elisa.
and this is our special guest Tiana on to talk about our conversation today. Bayroom is all things Black love, Black family, Black relationships, Black friendships. So if that sounds something up your alley, please subscribe to our YouTube, which is bay.room. Follow us on Instagram, bay.room, and follow us on TikTok at bay.roompod.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to add?
Let's get into it. Let's jump right,
do
right
it.
in. As Deja mentioned, we have Tiana here. This is my best friend, my son's godmother.
In period.
And we are here to get into some things. We're just having a girls' night tonight to talk about dating, to talk about Tiana's walk in singlehood, and all those things. But before we jump into it, I want to quickly start off with something that you mentioned to me before. So on our platform, our content is centered mainly around Black women and Black men, women and Black men, and healing that dynamic and that space. And we have this hashtag Save the Black Family. So one day during our conversations about your thoughts on dating, you mentioned that you felt like any child that comes from a Black woman, or any child birthed from a Black woman is sort of like building that space. And it doesn't only, so what you said was building in that space doesn't only mean Black man and Black woman. You said anything that came from a Black woman specifically is building a Black family. So I wanted to touch on that a bit because personally, when I thought of Bayroom and healing the Black space, save the Black family, I was kind of like on my Malcolm X. I was kind of on my nothing against interracial couples or anything like that, but thinking more so bloodline.
Right.
And although a lot of us are mixed, a lot of us have mixed backgrounds. As Black people, we come in all different shapes and colors. I was thinking about Black men and Black women having babies and prolonging our existence as people by procreating amongst ourselves, because I do feel it's important, and so that's just where my mindset was. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because I think that's an important conversation to have, because I'm sure a lot of people, first of all, look at our content, look at the things that we post, and are like, okay, well, I don't see any Black gay couples. Is that not saving the Black family? Or I don't see any Black interracial couples. Is that not saving the Black family? So one thing I do want to just make very, very clear, in our community, all of those things are great, but in our community, we do not see enough of Black women and Black men staying together. And a lot of us come from Black men and Black women, and we come from broken homes. And so that is kind of where that passion lives for me. So speak a little bit about your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I'll take it all the way back to my own upbringing. I was brought up with a very Spaniard, Puerto Rican stepdad. My dad was not in the picture. So that's number one. My little brother looks like a Spaniard, Puerto Rican young man, but he is a fully Black boy, right? He was raised in a family that looks like me. My grandmother was chocolate. People used to think that we adopted him, but that's just my own upbringing. But I do believe just within that, any child that is coming out of a Black woman's body is a Black child. And I think that in her passing down her experiences, oftentimes that child is raised around their mom. I'm not speaking for every family, right? But for most of the time, a lot of these children are raised around their black family. They're raised around their black cousins. Now, when we think of biracial children who are born to, say, a white mother, their experience is a bit different.
Yeah.
They're raised a lot of times around their white family and their white mom, who can't always speak to certain experiences that they're having, whereas a black mother can speak to that part of them. So when I say that saving the black family, I truly believe also incorporates children who are being birthed by black mothers specifically. Now, this is not to offend anyone or anything like that, but there's just certain struggles that we have. There's certain lineages and traditions that we have that we are the carriers of, that we gave birth to, and we continue to pass that down.
Yes.
So when I say that, that's what I mean about that. Because whether a black woman is with a white man or an Asian man or a Puerto Rican man, a Spaniard man, whatever the case may be, that baby is going to likely identify with their blackness.
Right. That makes sense. And I think there's a clear distinction. You know, there was also during COVID, I don't know if you guys remember, this conversation around like who's black and who's not. Like so like are Spanish people black? And I think there's a clear distinction between, and what people kind of get confused is like being a person of color and being African American black.
Yes.
African American black, at least in New York, there's just certain things. There's just certain things. There's like growing up, you know, everyone is not from the hood, but you know, growing up in your neighborhood, like, you know, seeing certain things growing up, like I can't even think of things off the top of my head, but there's just certain things as a black person, like, you know, even though our culture was stripped from us, we do have those, you know, those cultural things that kind of shape our upbringing. And so, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because I thought that was an interesting point that you made.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can just jump
right
into
in.
it.
I love that point. I think it's interesting because my daughters have Dominican and have black, but I never look at her as Spanish.
Right.
Like I just don't. I just be like, all right, girl. Like,
That's like me. Like my whole entire dad's side is from Cuba. My dad looks like a black man, but he looks like a black man, but like my whole side is Spanish. Like I grew up literally like my grandmother don't speak almost a lick of English, but I've always identified as a black woman.
Exactly.
Like
that's exactly my point.
That's the
Hispanic.
experience.
Exactly my
No,
literally is my point.
Literally.
And sometimes I feel conflicted. I'm like, should I be putting Hispanic? Like I'm just confused. But
Exactly.
No, I'm black.
Right, you were raised by a black
I was
woman and
raised
saw the
by a
black
black
experience.
You came out of a black woman's body. You are a black woman.
Period.
Period.
Poo. Period. Yeah, not to offend anybody. That's never the goal of this show. But I think we're just speaking facts.
No, yeah, and I wanted to
that's a
make
good
that super clear also because I'm sure that people have had thoughts on like what we mean by save the black family. The goal is to, you know, keep our black unit, our black families together and to heal that space. And we'll get into the interracial conversation as well because I think that that's super important to have.
Yeah,
But,
I agree. I agree. And that's a perfect segue because to have a black family, you have to date. You have to date around, right? You have to see who is worthy of your time, both for males, females, or however you identify. So Tiana, I'd love to hear, just because you're actively dating right now, and you spoke so well at episode 2 and 3. I love the way you talked about dating. I don't think I've seen someone put it so eloquently. So how long have you been single? Are you single now, and how long have you been single?
I am single now. I've been single since 2021. I was in like a short-lived relationship. But yeah, so I've been single for some time. And before that, I was single for like 5 years.
Okay. How has the dating scene been for you? Like, what is that high level?
Is there piss in the dating pool?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing that too.
Absolutely.
It's like kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Dating, I'll speak for dating this year has been very interesting. I felt like all of my experiences kept circling me back to dating myself. It kept circling me back to like dating my friends, dating where the love really comes from. I've met some interesting characters. All good people, I'm sure.
Good.
But I'm sure. But in my experience, it's just everything that I've experienced has kept showing me the parts of myself that, like, okay, if this is where you're still landing, there are certain things about yourself that you need to work through.
Before we get into yourself and the things that you're finding about yourself through dating and your singlehood, talk to us about like what these situations are like. Like what is it like dating in 2023? What is it like dating black men? Are you open to dating white men? Are you open to dating Asian men? What is it giving?
Oh, you trying to get all the tea? We jumping straight right out with it.
Have you tried a dating app?
Yeah, I'm on Hinge.
Yeah.
And I was completely, you know how I felt about dating
it.
apps. I was completely against dating apps. So I'll backtrack to what it's like dating right now in 2023. I definitely do always blame social media for the demise in dating and courtship. I think that we are now so accustomed to swiping left, swiping right, in the DMs, out the DMs, block, mute, restrict. Like we have all these like options,
right?
Or it seems like we have this illusion of options, and it makes it very hard to genuinely connect. I feel like in my experience, there's definitely that absence of really getting to know a person and building a genuine friendship, or kind of just jumping into things off the gate. I want this, and then a couple weeks later you realize you're not actually ready for what you're asking for. So it's really forced me to stick to my boundaries and going at my pace, and nobody else's. Hinge has taught me how to detach. I had, and still have, an anxious attachment style, which I'm consistently working through. That's a journey.
What does that mean, anxious attachment style?
So it means that I really get attached to somebody very quickly. And if I feel any sense of the behavior shifting, I start to like freak out. Like I'll start to, the performing of trying to overcompensate and do more to make sure that this person stays around, et cetera, et cetera.
Is it like you're attaching yourself to the idea of this relationship? Like there's something that you find in this person that you really like, whether it's they're attractive, their height, or whatever. It's something that checks your box, and you're like, I want this. And you're just like attaching yourself to what that could possibly be.
It's a few things, because an avoidant attachment style, an anxious attachment style, it's all stemming from a very similar place. It's the fear of abandonment. We all share some type of abandonment wound or childhood wound, whether you avoid attachment because you rather be away from it because you don't want to run the risk of being abandoned, or you're anxious where you're trying so hard to hold on to it so you don't have to deal with that feeling of abandonment, which is something that I've, through the grace of God, feel like I've really worked through. I do feel like at this point I have definitely developed a more secure attachment style because I'm now very attached to myself. You know what I mean? But to my point, I forgot where I was going with that.
You were talking about dating in 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And Hinge. We were talking about Hinge.
Yes, thank you.
Hinge taught you.
So Hinge taught me detachment, because on Hinge, you're not connected to these people. I didn't like the concept of flipping through people like a catalog. That was weird to me. But it gave me this sense of practice, because I'm like, I don't know how to date.
Right.
I go from relationships to situationships, and I'm just like, I'm at the point in my life where like, there's no more situationships.
And you also didn't like the idea of a roster.
I didn't. I hated the idea of a roster because I don't have the attention span, which literally I don't.
I think many people
recent
don't.
developments. I really don't have the attention span. Recent developments of my life. I really don't have the attention span for so many different people, like exchanging that type of energy. And it's really because like when you're someone who's intentional about your interactions, to be intentional with just a bunch of random people, it's just, that doesn't give, right?
Nope.
So Hinge kind of helped me practice setting boundaries. It helped me practice starting a conversation and trying to get to know like a total stranger. And if I felt like it wasn't there, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, this is just not, I don't want to waste your time.
That's cool,
literally.
though.
And it's been great practice for that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like that's amazing. That's an amazing takeaway.
Yeah.
And I love the idea, or not the idea, the realization of you don't have the attention span to have a roster. I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
That's why you end up picking one, and you kind of mess that up because you didn't focus on that one. You spent so much time trying to please a bunch of different others that you didn't get to know that one. I think that's interesting.
That's true.
Yeah.
I've always been an advocate for a roster. I've always been
Me too.
been an advocate for like, dating as many people as you have the time to. And when you said, it's hard to be intentional about dating multiple people, I was thinking about that. I'm just like, yeah, like when you're really being intentional and you're trying to like, get to know someone and like, but I think it's our in our nature, a lot of women, Black women, just give our all, and that's the problem because we're literally giving our all from the jump, even like in the early dating phase. Even if we're not physically doing it, we're mentally preparing ourselves to give our all, and to like we're planning what this is gonna look like,
Right.
instead of kind of just going with the flow. And I think that when you're going with the flow, that relieves like that pressure of like me being intentional. Like you can date intentionally, unintentionally. Like it doesn't have to be so planned and calculated.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And I think that makes it a little bit easier to navigate multiple people. It's kind of like just having friends. Like you're making time for your friends. Like you're just getting to know. But it is exhausting. Like people are exhausting at the end of the day.
It's really exhausting. I think, when I think of going with the flow, I always feel mixed about what going with the flow means, right?
Exactly.
Because I think it really does depend on what is your situation with that person. Like if y'all are actively spending time together and you are now in a space where you're intentionally dealing with this person, what's the outcome of this?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you're not going to waste my time because we just flowing. This is
Right,
not
like what's the flow?
open ocean. Like
No.
what are we just flowing? What do you
Not the
mean?
sea,
Yeah.
bitch.
Right? So
No.
but I do think that what you just said about friends, like I started looking at dating at this point of like making connections, networking.
Networking.
That's what dating is for me now. It's more of like I'm networking. I'm getting to know different types of human beings, different people, without any attachment, without any expectation. Where I can meet someone and my mind is like, oh, this person might be my husband. I blank canvas.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. And that's how it should be.
yeah, and out of this connection, we might become business partners. We might become great friends. We might become a couple, right? But there was a time where, like, because I had this idea of what I wanted so badly, every person that I'm meeting, I'm like, okay, I can picture this with this person.
Yeah.
But now it's like everyone is a networking contact
As
opportunity
it
until
should be.
it's something else because I don't know you.
No,
you know what I
right.
mean?
I agree. I think that's such a good outlook.
Yeah.
You touched on something before about learning yourself while dating. What are some things that you've learned about yourself in the men that you've dated or are dating?
That's a good one. I'm not dating anyone right now. But the men that I've dated, I will definitely talk about one experience I've had. My last relationship, actually. The one thing that I realized in that relationship, and this is actually a positive because I don't want to come on here and just talk about the negative experiences. There was definitely a side of me that I haven't unlocked yet. And in that experience, it helped me tap into that because there was things that I feel like that was the first time I really was learning something. And someone was able to actually teach me things I wanted to know about but didn't even know where to start. I moved to Jersey out of that. I leveled up my job out of that. Like I just started taking risk that I probably would not have. I probably would have taken smaller steps until I got there. But that interaction absolutely put me in my whole bag.
That's amazing.
And more so because of how this person really carried themselves. Like I was very inspired by that particular person. And yeah, things didn't work out, but I do feel like there's certain connections that you make literally to exalt you forward.
Yes.
And I think when we're talking about dating, a lot of times you hear all the negative experiences that you had, but it's just like without that experience, you probably might still be in the same position you were when you actually met that person. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think some of the things I've learned about myself is one, anything that I want, anything I can put my mind to, I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. I've kind of always been like that. in a sense, but now I think so far out of the box, and now I know I have the capability to do that. Two, this entire time with all of the negative experiences I had, the love that I was looking for was really the love I wanted for myself. That is the biggest thing that I learned. I thought I had a relationship with myself, because a lot of times we say it out loud. I love myself.
Yeah.
I have a relationship with myself, but I didn't date myself. I didn't hang out with myself. I didn't get cute really just for myself, like whether it was for my friends or I'm going out, but it's like now when I run errands, I really look good to run errands. You never know who you're going to meet, first of all.
No, you don't know.
That's
You
a
might
fact.
meet your man at the supermarket.
You
Okay,
might meet him.
don't be leaving the house looking busted. Like,
do
I
it.
Girl.
get dressed for me.
Yes.
Everything that I do now, it's really for me first, and whoever it benefits after, that's great.
Period. Yo, I love
And
that.
that's
so
really what I've
much.
learned
Like,
in dating.
I love that so
That's
much.
just becoming a woman, though. That's what happens when you become a woman.
Yeah,
You
I
really
love
just
it
step
here.
into this bag where you're just like,
I love that.
it's hard. It's so hard just like navigating womanhood and navigating, especially with social media. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're just finding yourself, who you are, your identity as an individual.
Yeah,
Like,
and
who are you?
right, who are you? And I've had to ask myself that question so many times, but I think this year alone, on the other side of that, right? Like, we find all these great things about ourselves. Now we understand love. We understand how to love ourselves. But then, even with that, you have to face the parts where you weren't at your best
Yep.
in these experiences. And the one thing that I had to learn this year was grace. All this time, I thought I was being so gracious when you're giving people chance after chance. And it's like, no, you're just being attached. You're being codependent. You're not being gracious. You're actually being annoying. And you're annoying them. You're annoying yourself. Like, this is over, right? But I had to learn that I really didn't understand the concept of grace. Like, extending grace does not necessarily mean access. Like, this person doesn't have to have access to me. I don't need to have access to them for either of us to extend grace to each other.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
You touched on a couple of different things you learned about yourself. What were some patterns? Because I feel like we're glossed. I feel like your journey is so complex.
Yeah.
And I really want to get into it because I feel like the growth, the self-awareness, and I don't know, it might be hard to find a place to start, but I do want to get into that growth and what that looked like for you.
Yeah.
And just touch on some of the patterns that you noticed about yourself and why, like, it wasn't working. What was not working?
It's so funny because I just talked to my mom about this earlier today. The biggest pattern that I had to realize, like, I was very big on words, because I'm someone, if I say something, I really mean it. If I don't like you, you're gonna know. If I say what I say and I stand on it. And I really had a hard time realizing that there are so many people who are really not like that, especially when it comes to dating. You know, a lot of times in my experience, you have guys who, in theory, they have an idea of what they want.
Yep.
They have this vision of what they want, but when it's time to execute, they're actually not ready for that. And it shows in their behavior. It shows in the switch up. It shows in all of those things. But what I tended to do was hook on to everything that was being said, because I feel like, okay, if you said it, you mean what you say.
Right. Yep.
But a lot of times, no. They may, in their minds, yes, but they're just not actually there yet.
No.
That's just not for real. And I had to start to decode things. Just because they're saying it doesn't necessarily mean it's with you.
Right. Yep.
And that's
a fact.
another
Right.
thing. Someone can say they want marriage and kids and all these things, and we're like, okay, well, they're pursuing me right now. They must kind of see that with me. That's why we talking. No, that's
is
not
a
what that
whole
means.
fact.
Yep.
You know, so
That's a hard pill to swallow.
very hard, very hard, because it's like, what? What you trying to say?
Yeah,
you know what
no,
I mean?
seriously.
But think about it. Like, everybody that you come across, have you wanted marriage and kids with every man that you met?
Right.
No.
Right.
That's a fact.
You
And that is
know?
just the process of dating.
It's like interviewing for a job.
You're
Interview
not-
a bunch of candidates
yeah.
to
Right.
see if it's gonna work.
Right.
You learn what you want when you interview a bunch of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill. Like, and I've been in so many situations where I'm in an interview and they're saying all the things like, you know, you would be doing this, and you know, all of those things, and you start to envision yourself in that position, and you're like, oh, this is mine, I got it. And then at the end, they're just like, no, we went with someone else.
Right.
And that's very similar to dating, because you're having these conversations with these men, and they're like, yeah, you know, this is what I see for myself, or, you know, this is what I like to do, but you don't see them pursuing those things with you. Or, and that's a hard pill to swallow, but that's just the process of dating. But I feel like that's a lot of women's struggle. I feel like I sent you this this video of a woman talking a little bit about how women, a lot of times, like, we just jump the gun.
Completely.
We jump the gun. Like, we meet somebody, we like them, they're cute, and, you know, they're saying all these nice things. We start picturing, it's like we can't help it. We start picturing what the future looks like. We start planning our wedding.
Yeah.
Literally, like.
And a lot of times it's because we're really there.
Right.
We're
Literally,
really ready
yes.
for that.
It's not fake.
And that's
like,
it's not
really
fake.
there.
And that's the thing too, like, when you know that you are a wife, when you know, like, I don't really walk around like, yeah, I'm a wife. But yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm 1,000%. And with that, that means that there's a responsibility that you now have to yourself when you know that you are that. When you know you are ready for certain things, you can provide certain things. One, because you gave it to yourself first. And we're going to touch on that a little later. But you gave it to yourself first. So now you're waiting for that aligned man to meet you. When you are starting to be the woman you are, that wife, that prepared woman, to a man who's just feeding you dreams, and you're now giving that all away, what are you actually saving for the man that's really for you, that's going to show up for you and nurture that part of you? You know what I mean? So it's a responsibility to women who are feeling like they're ready. But it's like, now you have to be more conscious of, like, not just you and me. We have to really be more conscious of the energy that we're giving. We don't really have to do much.
Yep.
No.
You really don't.
You really don't.
The man that wants you, you really won't have to do a lot for him.
Once a guy's mind is switched, you just show up.
You
Like,
just
you just
show
sit
up.
pretty in the corner, and he will do the rest. Seriously.
Literally.
It's so true. What I'm hearing, though, and what, like, I didn't know this before, because I feel like I didn't properly date. I had a roster, but I chose up. So I also feel like I did the thing that I wasn't supposed to do. Like, I did the thing, like, luckily it worked out, but, like, you choose one. Like, you kind of, gravitate towards one. But I feel like a lot of this is like self-growth for you. Like, and I feel like until someone does that, an adult does that, you shouldn't be trying to pursue something with anyone else. You shouldn't even become a parent. You shouldn't become a pet owner, like nothing. I don't think, seriously, I don't think you should try to take care of anything and try to feed into anything and pour into anything until you do the work, because it's really tough to do the work with someone else there. It's really tough. It's like you're performing in front of someone and you didn't practice. You didn't practice the show. You just performing. You winging it. And we can't wing shit at this age. You can do what you want. It's not the age, but it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's the it's how you see your life playing out. How long are you going to keep playing games? You have to grow up. And so you have to do the self-work. And I think what I'm hearing is, like, it is a tough pill to swallow when you realize someone doesn't want to do something with you, but I feel like you've taken that ego out, so now you can, like, okay, I got you. Thank you for being honest. I appreciate that. Now let me go find, you know, my guy or my girl. But when you have that ego in you, you didn't do the work yet.
I'm so glad you said that, because this is something I actually learned while I was in therapy. And I think I talked on this on my Instagram at some point, but a lot of times when, and I'm speaking for women because I'm a woman, I'm sure men do this too, but when you're, like, holding on to a very dead situation, it's not because you want that person, it's your ego.
Right.
It's your ego that you're wrestling with, because the thought of that person moving on and meeting somebody else, the thought that you invested all this time, now you can't walk away, the thought, you're only hurting yourself. You're wrestling with your ego.
You really are.
Once you drop the ego and just be like, you know what, this ain't working. He don't want me. I don't really want him.
Yeah.
Like,
Drop
we
the
can
ego.
just drop the ego. Let's go and great. And if y'all supposed to be, it will find its way back. But it's like, a lot of times we're fighting for things because we feel like this person shouldn't walk away from us, or we feel like,
or we don't want to see them with somebody else.
Right. It's like, but what's the trade-off?
Right, literally, like your mental health.
What's the trade-off?
Like, what? Yeah, exactly. Now you're wasting time. Now you're wasting your own time.
And we're years off your stress kills.
Stress kill. You shaving your lifespan for that man.
Literally.
My mother always told me, or always says to me, don't waste your pretty years.
Seriously.
And it's like a lot of
factual.
us have wasted a lot of
Oh, yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah.
Our pretty years. And it's like,
Yeah.
especially when you're in long-term relationships, it gets really, really sticky. And it gets
Mm-hmm.
harder to leave those relationships. But that's why I always revert back to, my girl Lori. Because it don't matter how
We love you on this
all
side,
the
Lori.
time.
We
it
love
don't
you.
matter how
It really don't.
long.
And what they do for you.
Right.
It really doesn't.
You're not
If
about to
you're
waste her pretty years.
No. If you're no
No.
longer serving me, I gotta
to
go.
You got to go.
Period.
Yeah.
No,
And some
seriously.
people like to think of that as like being transactional, but it's just like, if I am absolutely not getting anything that's benefiting my well-being now at this point, that means at some point you aren't either.
You're right.
So why are
Right.
we in this?
Right.
You know what I struggle with
Right.
though? It's hard. It's like you have these conversations. It's like we got all the answers. People got all the answers. But it's like I struggle with. So there's also this conversation around like the illusion of choice of options, right?
Right.
And it's like you don't want to have the mentality of just up and leaving
Right.
and not sticking things through because you're gonna go through things with whoever. And I guess this is a little bit. I guess this kind of starts in the dating phase because a lot of times people are quick to ghost. People are quick to jump ship, just at the slightest things.
Yeah.
And it's like finding that balance.
It's hard.
Like how to and I feel like you've struggled with this a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like how long do you hold on?
Yeah.
At what point is enough enough? Now
Right.
it's one thing for a guy to be clearly showing
Yeah.
you that
Right.
that's one thing.
Yep.
But like there's also some value in sticking it out and growing with someone and all of those things. But it's just really difficult to.
It is.
I 1,000% agree with that. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not as soon as one bad thing happens, strike you're out.
Right.
I think there's a few things that are important in this conversation. One, patterns of behavior.
Absolutely.
Once you have a conversation with someone about a boundary or something that they did or something that made you feel uncomfortable and y'all have talked about it, but now you see that this is a repeated behavior, that means that something about this person doesn't align with who you are.
Right.
So if you had that problem in the beginning and you stick it out and 5 years later your relationship ends because of the same problem you had in the beginning, you are this is who this person is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think sometimes we try to build the idea we have of the person we want with the person that has been delivered to us,
Right.
but that just might not be your person.
Right.
And I think that's a good benchmark of knowing like when it's time to kind of check out.
Ignoring like the red flags and things, or
The-
your red flags.
Or your red flags, right? Because this person might be who they are and you might be who you are, and who you are just doesn't align. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person, they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there's someone more equally yoked with who you are.
Absolutely.
And that can happen at any stage of a relationship. I feel like people be so shocked when they see people who's divorcing after 15 years or 20 years.
People
They're not the same
change.
people.
They're not the same people.
It's a blessing if you can continuously grow and get to know that person over and
fall
over
in love with them
again
each time.
Yeah.
each time.
That is a blessing. It's
You know,
difficult.
but it's difficult, and you have to have a person who wants to do that work. Now, in dating, it's work to keep going through that process of getting to know a person.
Yes, that's draining.
And then if it don't work out, you're getting to know another person. It is very draining, which is why it takes me back to the element of friendship. If we take out all the expectations and let's just hang out.
Right. And see if we
Let's
actually
just-
like each other.
Do we actually like each other
yeah.
as people? Because a lot of times people are heavily attracted to the idea of each other, the lust part of it. Y'all look good, we hang out, it's a vibe. But like outside of that, I really like you?
Yeah.
Like I know what it takes to be in a long-term friendship.
Right.
I've been friends with one of my best friends almost 20 years. I've been friends with Elisa. I met Elisa when she was like 15. You know what I mean? And we've been through things as friends. That takes effort and forgiveness and work and healing to be in a long-term friendship. So why would that not apply if I'm going into this trying to date somebody?
Right. You know what I found though? I said I found though.
Don't edit that.
I find that a lot of black men don't really like black women. I feel like black women trigger them,
1,000%.
and vice versa. And that is the whole entire point of Bayroom, because there are so many areas where we trigger each other.
Oh, yeah.
For Black men, they may have grown up with a woman, a single mother, who was short-tempered, who had an attitude, who was snappy, who was feisty, and those things trigger them. You know, I look at the dynamic between like white guys who date black women, and they're not so easily triggered. You know, Black men will look at them like, oh, they're a simp, or oh, you know, like, you know, they're letting this woman walk all over them, or that may be the case in some cases, but I think they're just not triggered. It's just like they're just not as sensitive to certain ways of communication and certain interactions. Not saying that, you know, there's anything wrong. I don't think that it's okay to walk around with a chip on your shoulder in your relationship, or, you know, feisty. I think that as Black women, we have to work on our attitudes, work on our patience, work on the way that we communicate. But there's something to that, though. And I think that a lot of Black men are triggered, and a lot of just Black people in general are triggered in their relationships because of PTSD, because of mommy issues, daddy issues. A lot of Black men are looking to their women to be their mothers. And we carry that burden. And because we've seen our mothers be mothers, single mothers, and holding everything down, holding, whether it's their partner, their children, we're automatically doing that in our relationships. And it's just an unhealthy dynamic.
Agreed.
And so that brings me to this conversation around like PTSD when it comes to Black men.
Girl, it exists and it's real. And it's a really sad truth, but it's like, my truth is that every Black man that I've encountered outside of some of my, like, of course, my male friends, but all of the trauma I've ever experienced, starting from my dad, was at the hands of a Black man.
I agree.
And
Second that.
I've never, and I say this, like, I've never experienced trauma from a white man, because I don't insert myself in like white spaces other than like work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've never like I don't know. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I pray I never have that issue ever. But
I pray it don't gotta come to that.
I don't want it to
come to that. Act right, okay?
You know what I
Act
mean?
right.
But all of my, so it's all of these layers of healing. Like, you heal from your father wound, but then you've had X, Y, Z experiences with other Black men after that were so traumatic on so many different levels. So by the time you get ready to settle down and you're trying to date, that's where it takes me back to that, like, taking time to actually like heal, like
Yes.
be alone.
Yes, be
Because
alone.
it does take a level of knowing what your triggers are and how to step away from them, and knowing like, okay, I'm reacting to a trigger, I'm not reacting to the person.
Right.
And the same goes for Black men. And something that you said, that you don't think a lot of Black men and women actually like each other. These gender wars on social media, it's like, it feeds this belief that we are to be against each other. But it weirds me out too, because it's like, sometimes, like, do y'all actually like sometimes I see takes from men, and it's like, do y'all actually like dead ass like women? In general.
No.
Because it freaks me out.
Just
It's
don't
like,
know how to like actually like how to embrace, admire, like respect.
They don't know how.
yeah.
They don't know how.
And I think it's interesting you said something about, and this is not speaking for all Black men, because there's some amazing, wonderful, like, chef's kiss of Black men that I have the pleasure to be friends with, to converse with, and to have these exact conversations with. So it's always great getting the male perspective and from what they see on their side of it, but also the accountability that they have.
Right.
And on purpose, I've been connecting with more men platonically that are aligned with who I am and where I am now. So I can really hear and understand that perspective.
Right.
There's something you said about looking at, you know, a white man like as a simp because he really values this Black woman. But I've actually seen other Black men call another Black man a simp because they put their wife first.
Right.
Because they tell their wife everything that they're doing and every place that they go, and out of just respect.
I've seen it too.
Right.
So she doesn't worry. Like, did you ever think that she just doesn't want to worry about where her Black husband is in America? Like, did you ever just think that?
No.
Like, you know, so
They fight in invisible wars.
It's
like
such an
ridiculous.
invisible war, and I do think that social media is such a dangerous playground for these ideologies. There's other podcasts who feed into these beliefs.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
all types of takes on this internet. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I think when you're single, you have to discern the information that you're taking in to attract what you really want.
Right.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
it's easy to get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of like use social media as like a tool to navigate, to form your opinion
Yeah.
Which is
1,000%.
instead of going based off of your experiences. Using social media to form your opinion of what a relationship should look like, what a woman is, what a man is, like all of these things. There's so much information. It's so many
It's too
perspectives,
much.
so many opinions, and it's like if you just unplug for a minute, talk to yourself. We talked about trusting yourself and doing the work. It's that much easier to attract what it is that you're looking for,
1,000%.
Absolutely.
and those things happen more organically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, to that point about like PTSD, I realized like, you know, I've been in like toxic relationships with like super aggressive men, and I noticed that, and also like growing up in a home where there's yelling, I noticed that I'm like super sensitive to yelling and
Yeah.
like certain conflicts and the way that conflict happens. Like I don't mind yelling, like I don't mind
I
I don't mind that, but it does, like in certain conversations, like it does trigger me. I'm realizing about myself, like I've never I've learned how to be more of a submissive woman, but I'm realizing that I really need a man who is going to balance me at the height of my emotions. And I feel like a lot of black men don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of men in general, and you know, like I don't want to make this like a black thing. It's just I've never dated anything.
Oh,
anyone else.
right. So you're really only speaking
So
from
it's
what
like,
you know.
and maybe that's a bad thing. But it's like I've never come across a man who knew how to navigate and even out my emotions at the height of my emotions. It's always a war. It's always a fight fire with fire.
Yep.
And I don't know if that comes with becoming a man.
Yeah, some of them.
And it's
That's a good
like,
point.
is it one of those things where it's like, once you actually become a man, you realize that as the leader, you also need to lead emotionally.
Yeah.
And it's just as a partner, kind of like picking up that slack and kind of just like, you know, being that balance in those
Yeah.
situations. But yeah, I'm realizing like as I get older and as I'm learning myself, like I have anxiety. I don't do that well under a certain amount of pressure. And sometimes, depending on who I'm talking to, that may come off as like short patience or whatever the case may be. I really need somebody who is going to make me feel safe emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely do think that goes back into like childhood, right? I feel like the common theme with the men that I've dated, a lot of them were raised by single mothers.
Yeah.
And being raised by a single mother who is raising a son, it is very difficult to be mother and father and in the day in and day out.
Right.
Like the day in, the day out of raising, especially in the fear that comes with raising a black son in this country or anywhere probably around the world, right?
Yep.
So a lot of
Yep.
times when that the reaction that a mom has when she's like tired and
Right.
yelling and she's screaming and she's doing all this because she's just tired, she's afraid,
Yep.
she's just trying to make ends meet, like, you know what I mean? So by the time that same young man starts to meet a woman, you know what I mean? He also can't take the yelling.
Right.
He also can't take the attitude. He can't receive it. So this now comes into communication.
Right.
Yep.
what have you been through? And that's something in dating, like, when I'm like, I think dating
that's
also,
a powerful question.
what have you been through? Like, what, like, we all come with a story. There's a reason why we interact with each other this way. So, what happened in your childhood that makes it difficult for you to communicate with me in the way that I need, needs to make this work?
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? For me, like, I don't do well when people start to get shaky and switch up. Why? I had an inconsistent and absent dad. God rest his soul. Love my dad. That's the homie.
Yeah.
He was the homie in my more adult life. But in childhood, he was here the next day, gone the next. Like, so when people be flaky, that triggers the fuck out of me. Like, I will not speak to you at this point.
Right.
If I feel like you flaky, inconsistent, that's what I'm working through now. It's like, I have to be patient in that aspect because life be happening to people,
Yeah,
etc.
of course. But communication is key.
Communication,
Because you're gonna make time for who you want to make time
Right.
for.
communication is key, and I think there's a level of vulnerability that even in dating, when you're actually like seriously deciding that, okay, I really do want to date this person,
Yep.
there has to be an even exchange of vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
everybody's coming with some type of trauma, and if we don't know or understand that from the gate, how will I even know how to communicate with you? You know?
There was something that someone had commented recently under one of our reels that said it's not our job as a parent, or it's not the parent's job to teach women, our daughters, how to deal with black men and their trauma. And as you were sitting here talking about like what do you know, what did you go through? What have you gone through? It's so many of our stories, black men and black women, we have so much trauma attached to who we are as people. And there's positivity that comes from it, but there's a lot of negative that comes from it. And it translates in our relationships. And so what do you guys think about that idea that like this come healed idea? And I know I said that in episode 2 and 3. And that means like, of course, having a level of self-awareness and doing the work in a certain kind of way. But should we be given the tools on how to navigate each other's trauma?
That's a great
I
question.
think for that, I break it down this way. I have the tools to help you. I'm a great listener. I'm a great speaker. I will be there for you, but I'm old enough, discerning enough to know when to let that go. How I choose to help you is my choice. So I can be there for you through your trauma. Like, absolutely. And if you show me that, hey, I'm working through this, what do you have any resources? Absolutely. But I'm discerning enough to know this is not serving me. This is actually draining me to walk away.
Right.
So I don't think it's about teaching your daughters or sons to deal with anyone's trauma. No,
Right.
you're no one's parent. We're not equipped. If I wanted to go to be a psychologist, that's what I would have done. That's not my job.
It's not my
Or my
ministry.
career path or my ministry. Just want to make that clear. But I do have the tools to help someone through their trauma or with their trauma or identify their trauma if I so choose to. But no, so it's not, I don't think it's someone's choice to say like, here's how you recognize that, here's how you help someone through that. But as a discerning adult, I'm gonna help you the energy has to be reciprocated.
Right, right.
So that's the answer to that for me. Like, I also don't think that just because someone has trauma, you need to like steer clear.
Yeah.
Because you may be that angel for them.
Right.
You don't know
I'm
how you
so
show
glad
up in
you said
people's
that.
lives. I remember I worked at a job one time and this lady was like, my back hurts. And she was just going on and on like about her back. And I was like, you need to take care of yourself. Like, I don't know you, but you need to take care of yourself. What do you do? I was like, what, you got kids? What? And she's like, I have kids. They're in college. I do this, that. And I was like, so when do you go to physical therapy? Just to see if she goes to physical therapy. She's like, I've never been. Your back hurts and you've never been to physical therapy at that big age. And I realized people don't put themselves first. But she told me, she was like, you were sent here to tell that to me. Like, you were sent here to say that. And that's bare basic level of like, go get help, girl. But you don't know how you show up in people's lives. So you don't have to be cold to their trauma. You just have to be discerning to when to walk away from that
Yeah.
and when to stop
Exactly.
helping and when to stop assisting. And that's what people don't get. Like, you don't got to be there forever.
Yeah.
You're just there to light that match and just move on.
That was
Maybe.
my lesson for this summer, where I realized that was my biggest lesson in extending grace. And I realized that maybe I was sent in this person's life,
Right.
because my spirit and my light is something that they desperately needed. And when that time has passed, it was time for me to move on. It was time for God to remove that situation.
That's it.
And that's something that, especially when you are discerning, you're growing in the spirit, etc., to also just be mindful of the fact that we are all souls having a human experience. We all heal each other and interact with each other in very divine ways. And sometimes you are the person that's just sent to be in that person's life because they needed you, not that you needed them.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's a very interesting take from like the comment on your reel. I think that there's so many different ways to help someone through trauma, and I think the biggest way is through prayer. You're not going to drain me with your trauma. I can pray for you. God can do what I can't. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like God can do where I can't. I think that if someone, it's like going to a therapist. If you don't actually talk to your therapist about your trauma and why you're there, they cannot help you.
Right, exactly.
So if the concept of working through someone's trauma is taking the behaviors that comes with their triggers and all of that, and then starting to trigger my trauma, and now we're just trauma
We're in a
bonding,
circle. Yeah, no.
that's not going to work. I think it's okay to, like you said, look, these are the resources that I have. Do you want access to these resources? The answer is really yes or no.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you're not working with me and building trust and vulnerability, you can't find success with even a licensed professional if you're not trusting and vulnerable.
Right.
No,
Or if you're
no.
not honest.
Right.
I think that's a good, and I like, just to circle back, I think if you offer someone resources for anything to help them elevate, a biggest indicator if that relationship is going to work is if they take them or not.
Right.
You know how grateful you should be if someone offers to help you in any way. This world is harsh. There are people that cannot afford therapy. There are people that cannot afford other resources that are out there. If someone offers to elevate your life in any way and you just decline, I think that could be an indicator of like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work.
Yeah, people are not open to growth.
No.
And
Yeah.
self-development and
Right.
Some people,
all of those things.
yeah, some people have a very fixed mindset. And I think that that's how the world works. You need a balance of both. People with growth mindsets typically are more successful because if you're fixed, you're stuck in a way.
Right.
A lot of people are in a fixed mindset. They can't see past what's in front of them. People with growth mindsets, there's no ceiling.
Right.
They,
Literally.
they are literally the most successful people. They're borderline delusional.
Literally.
Right.
Hello.
You know what I mean?
Is the Salulu. I heard that.
Like literally, you know. So I think that no, I don't think that we should be raising anyone to just deal with
Right.
someone's trauma. I think that it's okay.
Not deal with, but teach them how to. So the idea was like, I think the in the reel I was talking about how, you know, growing up in a single household, raised by a single mother, we're not taught how to love a black man.
I don't agree with that at all.
And in a certain way, like we don't see the dynamic between a black man and a black man and a black woman, and you know, we don't really know how to not saying that life doesn't teach us how to love a black man, but we're
didn't
not
see it.
we're not raised to have a certain respect or a certain, because a lot of those things, those behaviors are taught through like observation.
I don't
Yeah.
agree with
What,
that.
what do you mean?
I don't agree with that because I can only speak from my own experience. I would tell you a story about my grandma that I recently learned. She moved up here in like the 60s. Her and my granddaddy got their first apartment together in Harlem, and one day, you know, he was coming from work, but she used to they didn't have a lot of money, but she used to put newspaper in his coat and in his shoes so his feet don't get wet and so his coat was warm. And that, like, first of all, that level of resourcefulness is just
I
like,
didn't even know that newspapers had this ability to do such things.
me neither. Me
amazing.
neither. But she would do those things so he wasn't wet and he wasn't cold. And
Love that.
love my granddaddy, but you know, he was in these streets.
Right.
She didn't got divorced, and my grandmother divorced him when my mom was too. I've seen the women in my family really love on black men, and I've seen that effort not reciprocated in the way that they deserve. And I feel like that's a lot of what we've seen.
So I'm
you
not
know?
when I say love, I think it's in our nature to care for. It's in our nature to nurture. It's in our nature to provide and protect in certain ways. Our black men. When I talk about loving a black man, I'm talking about how we interact with them, having a certain level of grace for their experiences. I'm talking about loving them in their love language.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we see us cooking, cleaning, doing all the things, filling their coats with newspaper as our way of loving, but they still may feel a void in certain areas because, for whatever reason, we aren't loving them the way that they need to be loved. And so that is really what I'm talking about. I'm not really talking about us showing up for our black men because we do that. I'm really talking about making them feel loved in a different way. And a lot of that sometimes comes from like the way that we're communicating with them, and that what that dynamic looks like.
Yeah.
So that's really what I was meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that when you get into a relationship with a black man, there's so many different things that you learn about their experiences and about how you actually should be loving, just as man in general. And that's not what we see growing up.
I can't say that. I feel like I've seen my mom in marriage.
Well, yeah, if you've grown up
Yeah,
seeing
like,
that,
you
then
know,
that's
I've
different. I'm talking
seen-
about like growing up in a dynamic where you don't see relationships.
But even in that dynamic, my mom's divorced, and I've seen that old enough. I was like in my teens. I've seen divorce old enough to know what it like really looks like. And this is, a Hispanic man, you know what I mean? I love my stepdad. He's the dad that I really know. But I think with that, the trauma that even comes from even his community and his upbringing, it's really hard to learn someone's love language when they don't even know it themselves, and they don't show it to themselves, and they don't speak. So I think it's important when we talk about learning to love a man in his love language, first he has to know what is his love language. Because you can try all of them. You can try all of them at the same damn time. And he is still
gonna be like,
miserable. He's still like, where's she at? And it's like, what more? Do you need my blood? Like, what
No,
more do I need to
seriously.
give you? Do you need a kidney? Like,
I mean, yeah, I understand that.
you know what I mean? And I think the same vice versa for women. I feel like in order for, and this ties back to really learning yourself, if you don't know how you show up for you, if you don't know how to give yourself the things you need, if you don't know your own love languages, and it's okay if your love languages change. It's okay if all of them weigh equally. But you need to know that.
Right.
Because if you don't know how to teach yourself that and give that to yourself, how could you? It's not fair to expect that from somebody else.
No,
You
that's
know?
true.
I 1000% agree.
So where are you now in dating and where are you?
I'm in a really happy place. I'm not dating.
Well, you're here to hear.
I'm so at peace. Like, I'm so
It's
at
because
peace.
you're not dating?
No, it's not because I'm not dating. It's because there's nothing in my life other than the regular adulting bills, random adulting stuff that can stress you out. But I feel like there's things in life that happen we have no control over. But my connections and where I spend my time is the one things that I do have control over.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times in dating, in my experience, I've spent time trying to control a narrative. And no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I believe God is sending my husband. My husband is coming.
No, he's coming.
He's on his way.
He's
I feel
here.
him. I
He's
literally feel
here.
him. I literally feel him.
You're gonna
He
run
just has
into
to
him.
find my address or my Instagram.
Yeah.
Not the address. Don't let him now pull
He
up
might
on you.
knock on
He
the door
might.
or
He
ring
might
the bell.
be in the. He might be in the building. He might live here.
I think he's here. I feel him too.
I literally don't.
Deja.
I feel him.
I'm taking in this
Praise him, praise
energy.
him. I feel him.
I literally feel like he's on his way, and
I feel him for you.
I'm content with where I am. Like I'm happy.
I think just observing you, the viewpoint that I get of you, you come off so elevated that I know your husband's around. Like,
Thank
because
you, bro.
and
I'ma
elevated,
see.
and I don't even know if that's the word, because it's so much to that word. It's layers. Because the way
She's
I'm
just
viewing
ready.
it,
She just
yeah, like
the
you're
aura
ready, but
is-
you are so self-aware to me. Like,
Thank you.
there's people that get it, and there's people that really get it. Like, and you've done the work, and I wanted people to understand, because I know people say it on Instagram. We've gotten past the phase of like self-care is not bubble baths. It's really looking in the mirror and taking time. I don't know if everybody
the
got that
hard
message.
stuff.
Message though. It's the hard stuff. It's not taking baths and buying yourself expensive bags,
Say
and
that again. It
it's
is
not
taking
it's not
baths.
it's not leaving work early on Fridays. It's not getting drinks at bars. You know, it's literally doing the work so
It's not the pretty
aggressively
stuff.
where your future self is smiling. Future you is just smiling so hard because you're so deserving of to see the lens on life not be so rosy because you grew up and you've grown in yourself. So I see that in you. That's
Thank
why I know your
you.
husband's around.
And I
I
do
know.
buy myself a nice expensive bag
Period.
to
I
complement the work.
as you should.
As you
Because
should.
I do like I feel like, you know,
It's balance.
Absolutely.
those hard conversations is very real. Raw, real I've talked to myself in ways that I wouldn't let anybody else talk to me.
Same.
Because I had to really like look in the
Get
mirror
down.
and say, you are the bozo right, now.
Right. Like, it's you.
I've had to say some things, and people
filter
might feel
on.
some type of way. Be careful how you talk to yourself. No, I had to dead ass say,
No.
like, girl, you're tripping.
Yes.
You are the one in the big red nose right now.
Yeah, with
this
the
is
tears.
jokes. What are we doing? How did we get here?
And
what are we doing?
friends too. We've had to have some hard
We've had
conversations
to have some
with each
hard
other
with each
about-
other.
That's
You
as
know,
you should.
and I
That's
think
a whole nother. That's a whole nother conversation.
it's a whole nother episode.
Your friends kind of being a part of that growth process and what that looks like, and you know, you may hear something your friends say one day, and you're like, I didn't really like. We've
Yeah.
had so many of
Yeah.
those moments.
Had
where,
to call each other out.
Yeah.
Had to understand each other's boundaries as we grow as
Yeah.
women. And I think that's really important, but it's also learning those boundaries with yourself. Now it's like, okay, this really bothers me. This didn't used to bother me a couple years ago, but now I think we got to switch up how we do
Yep.
this.
And
you
it's
know?
important, friends, girlfriends, to, if you can't keep it real with your friends, reevaluate.
You gotta go.
It's so draining to sit and hear somebody talk about their issues, and everybody is not always in this space. And that's another thing, like, understand where your friends are in their journey, because you'll either ruin your friendship trying to be real all
Yep,
the time,
that's true.
and your friend is not in a space to receive, or you know, you'll just drain yourself constantly saying the same thing over and over and over again, and your friend is not ready to receive. Like literally, like, assess where your friends are, but most importantly, just have people around you that's gonna keep it up. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen my friends be in spaces, like, I've literally had to say to her before, like, why do you keep giving this person your time? A question that she may not have asked herself.
Right. And in the same respect, I've had to say to her, what's happening?
What is going on?
What are you like? What's going on?
Did you
Do we
fall?
have to pull up? Like, where are we at with this? You know what I mean? And I think that that's real because it's just an act of love. It's just learning that, like, you also have to know when your friend is just not in the space to receive that from
Exactly.
you.
That's important.
Because the ultimate thing is that you want to know that this is a safe space and it's
Right.
coming from a space of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I had to tell Lisa, you will always be, and I'm saying this on camera, and don't edit it, this is my priority. This is where my loyalty lies, period. And that's real. You know what I mean? And I think that you have to, as a friend, know to assess where your friend is at, what they need from you, and when they need it.
Right.
You know? And in that same respect, when you are going through a situation that you are not yet ready to let go, whatever the case may be, find other outlets. Therapy is an amazing outlet. I was in therapy for 4 years. This was my first year therapy free, navigating life with my just tools.
Right.
And I didn't set nothing on fire. No one's harmed. Everything's great.
Right.
You know, I'm happy.
Period.
You know what I mean?
No,
but
yes.
talk to God.
I was just about to say, talking to God.
God is the counselor, the therapist. And my relationship with God has blossomed in ways that I've never felt disconnected before. And it's just going to keep getting deeper. But because you can't constantly, everyone's dealing with their own shit.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Calling up your friend, talking about the same thing over and over, they're only human.
You're gonna start pushing them away because people that are elevating can't be around it. It's like a
talk
rejecting
about
thing. It is.
You
I've
get
had to
into
let go
some
of friends
stuff.
and not by choice. because my body was literally rejecting you. Like hanging
Oh,
around
my
you was
gosh.
literally draining
Draining
me, and I
me.
couldn't put a word on it because I like you. You're fun. You're a good time. But something about you, like if I have more negatives than positives, you gotta go. I'm too old. I gotta go home to my kid. I gotta entertain and drink and pour into that, right? I gotta drain that energy. So it's too much.
When
No.
you're in a certain space in life, when you have certain priorities, and then also when you're just in a different headspace, it's one of the most frustrating things, and also sad things to start to feel. What's the word? The distance between your or the what is the word where you just feel
Disconnected.
the disconnection
Yeah.
between people who you are closest to because you're in different spaces and in different places in your life.
Yes,
That's a hard pill to swallow,
Yes, ma'am.
but that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But that ties into like romance too.
Right.
It's hard when you outgrow your partner.
Yeah.
Or the person that you were getting to know or dating. Like sometimes it's like you're now here, this person is still here, and it starts to be like, how much more am I willing to stay stuck in this same place when I'm trying to go here and you're still like here?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
That was amazing.
What? Am I annoying for that?
Let me just say, we are drinking. Look, they must have liked this shit.
Alcohol free.
It's literally alcohol free. But I do think that there's a little something. I know there's some like calming. It's like something in it.
She's about to
Excuse
kick
me.
you
You
out.
about to get the lights off.
I'm sorry, y'all.
She's about to kick Lisa out.
I am literally just coming back alive because the way the flu tried to take me out.
Yeah, flu is
Yeah.
no joke. It kills a lot of Americans. No, it really does.
You can wrap this up, sir.
No, it really does. It's so crazy because before COVID, people used
How
to
did we get here?
I'm gonna scare y'all a little bit because take care of yourselves and stop going to work and stuff with the flu.
Yes,
and
yes.
stop sending your kids to school with things that can be tested for. I think that's a good rule of thumb. If your
Yeah.
kid
Yeah,
can
'cause
be
they bring
tested
it
for it,
home.
don't send them. If they have a cough and you test it for everything, they don't have nothing, I think they can go. But if,
Yeah.
if it's a test for it and they have it, don't send them to school because my kid gets sick. But what I'm trying to say is the flu was killing a lot of Americans, like 200 and something thousand Americans a year before COVID.
Yeah,
And
of
people,
course.
when I heard the flu, I heard it like I thought it was like a cold. So people would say, "Oh, I have the flu," and I'm like, "Oh, it's the flu."
Is kind of like a
Yo,
cold.
I had the
almost
flu
feel like the
last
flu-
year.
It is a cold.
I literally feel like the flu and COVID is like the same
They're
thing.
like family members. They
Yeah, they
definitely
are.
are. They're respiratory illnesses. They fuck up your lungs, and if you have underlying diseases, don't catch one. So.
Okay,
That's our medical
disclaimer.
lesson.
Go get text,
That's our
guys.
medical lesson for today. I want you all to be safe and stop sending your kids to school sick. It's
I'm
not cute.
dead. Tiana, was there anything else you wanted to touch on or cover in this date night talk?
Well, it was something that we just briefly talked about before we started, and it was just about. I really need to talk on this list: Applebee's
Oh
versus
my gosh.
Cheesecake Factory.
where people don't want to date.
Yeah.
Yo, that's crazy that people even have. I'm not saying don't have standards, but how are you excluding like anything?
Applebee's can get that's definitely no. First of all, their food is just nasty.
Yeah, I feel like they all the same too. Applebee's, Chili's.
Are people taking people to Applebee's for dates?
I would not know. I don't hang around people that take people to Applebee's for dates.
Well,
so
you heard
I
it
literally
here.
wouldn't know. I literally wouldn't
Tiana's
know.
husband, don't take her to Applebee's.
I literally wouldn't know.
I don't think you need to spend $200 on a first date.
I don't either.
Are there really nice first dates where $200, $300 need to be spent? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But do I mind a $200, $300 first date? No. But you don't need to spend that. You don't need to spend a dime on a first date. I would rather
Right.
go get a coffee.
Yes.
Literally,
I'd
I
rather
would
take a
on a
walk.
first
rather
date.
go get a chai latte
Seriously.
and take a walk.
Seriously.
Yes. I think the larger conversation, I think the larger elephant in the room around that conversation is where and who the request is coming from. I'm a firm believer on if you can't take yourself out for a $700 date and fly yourself out, you should absolutely not be demanding anyone's son, because no one's going to demand my little brother to fly them anywhere.
No.
No one's doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you should absolutely be in a position where you can, I feel like when you are giving these things to yourself, you don't have
look
that
to a
demand
man.
from
Yeah.
someone else.
And
The
you
things
set a
that you're-
standard.
The things that you're seeking from a man is literally not that. They're
Right.
nice to haves, and you know, these are things you enjoy doing, so you would like to be with someone who enjoys doing those things too, but like, it's not a requirement for someone to have access to you.
Right.
No,
Right.
and don't let these rap lyrics and
Yeah,
social
it's
media
social
videos
media,
trick
really.
your mind into thinking that 25-year-olds have funds to take you, to fly you out for a 7-day vacation.
And even if they did have the funds,
It's
just like,
ridiculous. I think it's a
that's
ridiculous
not how you
ask.
build connection.
It's not. And I think when you do that for yourself, you've set a standard. So the people you hang around need to be doing that. Don't set that standard and still decide to go to McDonald's or wherever you think you're going to meet some guy. Like, I think it needs to match. Like,
Right.
so the
Yeah.
girlies that are doing that, they're not in those spaces where guys can't do that. So yes, it's not a requirement. Like,
Right.
whereas the people that made this list, I don't know if you're in that space.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see the list. I didn't really pay too much
It's
context.
like Cheesecake Factory, which
I
I think is
didn't-
absurd.
And I love Cheesecake
I love
Factory.
Cheesecake Factory.
I actually really do love
I
Cheesecake
think that's
Factory.
absurd that you would even make a
not one
list.
of my
Like, you
favorites.
talking about you want to find love. You said it's not one of my Cheesecake Factory. Dang.
I
don't
like
know. I love
Cheesecake
Cheesecake Factory. I'm
I
appreciative.
like going to the gym. There was things on there that was
Speakeasy
just
girl.
like,
She said, so what was on this list?
it was a few things. It was like coffee dates, walks in a
This
park,
is a
gym.
no.
This was a no.
Yes,
Coffee
that's
dates, walks in a
crazy.
park, gym, Cheesecake Factory,
Definitely
Applebee's,
don't want to go to the
BBQs.
gym as a first date. Maybe
I
we could do something
do.
cute, like ride a bike.
I think it
That's
depends
like a
on
workout.
the person. I think it depends on the person, but I think to make a list is absurd. Like,
Yeah.
you're crazy. Because it's like, you can have your nose in your head, but for you to tell someone up front, like, yo, I don't do Applebee's, he'll know that if he talks
So
to you.
was
I'm
there
gonna
a-
tell someone
was
up
there
front.
a-
Don't take me to the fucking Applebee's,
Or
bro.
Chili's or any of the family restaurants.
No.
Because it's a few of them. It's like,
Like Longhorn, ew.
yeah,
I
I've never
like
had that
Longhorn.
before.
I like
What?
Longhorn. I
Sorry,
do
Longhorn.
actually order takeout from them.
I hate it.
I've never been. Is it like Applebee's?
Yeah.
Kinda. Not
don't
no.
like it.
Applebee's. We can't put nothing next to Applebee's. Is literally nasty. It's
Oh, you like
gross.
it's just so what about Chili's?
I've never been to Chili's
Me neither.
actually.
Wait, I think I've been to Chili's.
It's
I think
all
it's
the
like
same
Applebee's
stuff.
too. It tastes like it's like the same. They
It's
get the
all
same
the
wings.
same
That's how I
stuff.
know when you order
I
the
just
wings.
get the salmon
Longhorn
and
is
rice
F.
from Longhorn.
She wants salmon and rice,
I'm
not
pescatarian.
but
But
any of the other shit that Applebee's be
I
selling.
like to go to speakeasies, get a nice cocktail.
she wrote the list, y'all.
I mean, no, I listen. There are plenty of things to do, like I said, that don't require all those funds.
Yeah.
I went on a date to Swingers one time, and it was like $200 and something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's fun, but it's like also
Yeah.
not necessary.
it's a lot of money, and I think it's okay to have standards. I just think like the tone of that list wasn't standards. It was
Yeah.
being
No.
condescending and trying to some low budget girly maybe trying to tell some guy what she won't do to elevate her life, in which you can't do that for yourself. So if you can take yourself to Cheesecake Factory every weekend, okay, then I can see how you don't want Cheesecake Factory. Like,
What you said earlier, you said stop using people to level up your life.
stop doing that.
That is a bar.
Because that's the tone of that list. It didn't give, I have standards and, I'd like to stay in my realm. I don't want to give up or lower my standards. It gave condescending and nasty. And, like, you should be honored, not honored, like, but you should be grateful that
No one
someone wants
owes
to
you
spend time
anything.
with you,
No one owes
spend
you
money on
anything.
you, and they don't know you.
Yeah.
They don't know you. And, like, to say Cheesecake Factory is absurd, like, I'm just stuck on that. That's
and to,
crazy.
And to kind of tie it all together, this goes back to like an earlier point. One, actually get to know someone that you're dating. Like, I might actually like to go to the gym on a first date.
Right.
I would actually love to work out with a fine man. Yes, a fine man.
I
What?
wanna
A
see- I
fine
wanna
man.
see how out of shape you are.
No, but if you
I
could
work
give me,
out. I'm not out of shape.
I think it's cool.
Nobody looking at me struggling.
I think it's fun. I think like partner workouts.
I love
think
that.
it's fun. I think
yeah,
it's a
once you're
fun.
in relationship, that's cute.
I could do that for
But
a
I
first
don't
date.
need
I could
nobody
do it for a first
see
date.
me with my arms shaking trying to do a push-up.
But I
That's
think it
embarrassing.
fosters
Don't do
such
push-ups.
like a instant vulnerability and trust, because more than likely that man gonna try to help you.
Right.
It just it
Oh,
that's
you
just
want somebody
cool.
to
Lift me up, so show me how to do, like, you know, because I can't do
Show you
pull-ups.
how to-
Like, how you pulling up? You
I
know?
think it's something to
Dead.
be said if someone takes care of their body too. So if the first date is a gym, I might like that.
I
Like,
would really
you're
like-
taking care of yourself. You want to see me do
gotta get
that?
back in the
Okay.
gym.
Yeah, I would really like that. So I think it just, it depends on, one, knowing the person. Two, do not date beyond your means.
Yes.
Like,
Stop. Whoever
don't
made
date-
that list. That's
don't
absurd.
date beyond your means. And this goes for men too. Like, you want to be impressive when you really don't got $700 or $200 for a date. Be creative. You know what I mean? And I think lastly, social media is, like I said, a dangerous playground.
Can
It
we
really
just
feeds this
cancel
narrative.
Instagram?
It really feeds this narrative of like
And Twitter.
Twitter, I think is I like Twitter. Twitter's
I haven't
funny,
been
but
on
it's
Twitter since 2011.
Twitter is egregious. Like, the takes on Twitter is insane. But I feel like, again, you have this gender war narrative of women wanting all of these things, et cetera. But it's like, that's what you're reading. There's other narratives. There's other women who are putting out positive messages about men, positive messages about love, and even in their singleness.
Right.
You know, but your algorithm is conditioned to your beliefs because that's what you're looking at. That's what
Exactly.
you're listening to.
And you should be able to critically think when you go on social media.
Right.
If you can't form an opinion outside of the 60-second video you are watching, then you need to not be on anything, and you need to
Literally.
Read a
go
book.
do something. I don't even know if that's even going to matter, because you might not even want to wait to the end. Like, people are so conditioned. I watched the videos that people are so conditioned to watching 60-second videos that, like, no one wants to even watch like a 10-minute
Yeah.
YouTube video.
Yeah.
That people don't even like movies, like the decline in like viewership and everything. That's so insane.
Humans are really just like going to shit.
We're going to shit.
Going to shit.
I'm doing my
It's
best
really,
to survive.
yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great though. Any last words, anyone? I love this episode
I
so
really
much. I
don't
feel like
like
this was good.
this alcohol-free wine, y'all.
Yo, I loved it.
I loved it.
Clearly.
I loved it. Right, I finished mine before the episode really got into it.
I love it. You might like a different flavor.
Yeah, a different flavor and maybe not chilled.
Yeah.
But I
loved
think
it.
this journey of me stopping drinking from the 1st to June, this will help so much. Because, like, I think I want to hold a drink. I want to taste it, but not to have that buzz. I need to stop depending on things to, like, have a conversation sometimes.
Just drink water and juice if you don't want liquor. That's my thing.
But this is
I like
good.
I like the
Water
feeling of
juices.
pouring a glass of
Yes.
wine.
Even the bottle. Like, I need
It
the whole
literally
thing.
looks like wine. It gives you the feeling of like wine.
It satisfies that's whatever. in your
Yeah.
brain.
All right, I'm going to go home and go get me a nice glass of wine.
A real one, a real glass of wine. But thank you so much, Tiana,
Yes,
for doing
thank
this
you.
You're
episode.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's been great. And thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to Bay Room if this is your type of tea. Follow us on Instagram at bay.room. Follow us on TikTok at bay.roompod.
YouTube, Bay.room.
YouTube, bay.room. All the things.
Bay.room.
Bay.room.
Google
Bay.room.
us.
Bay.room.
Google us.
Google us.
And we're almost at the end of the season. This is episode 9. Well, we're halfway through.
Halfway through.
And if you're still sticking with us, we love you.
We love you and happy holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
I don't know when it's coming
Happy
out.
New Year.
Happy holiday, New Year. Bye.
Happy holiday New Year. Bye.